Here's a fun fact. You've probably walked past something historically fascinating and just kept walking. Story Strolls fixes that. It's a free app packed with guided audio walking tours. They call them strolls, full of the kinds of stories that make you stop, look around, and say, wait, seriously? Start with the free Philadelphia Candy History Stroll. Then check out more strolls in the app, with new ones coming soon. Download Story Stroll, free on Google Play and the App Store. Go take a walk, but make it interesting. From scenic riverfronts to car-free paths to wooded gravel roads, the Philly area has some amazing bike trails, whatever your experience level might be. I'm speaking with West Philly's Julian Bender, who's talking to me about some of his favorite bike routes in the city and the burbs, and even all the way down to Atlantic City. It's Thursday, June 18th. I'm Trinina Ray, and here are some of the best places to bike in and around Philly. Julian, you were born and raised in West Philly, and it's where you learned how to ride your bike. First of all, do you remember your first bike?
My first bike in life, I don't think so.
Okay.
It would have been, when I was much younger. Don't really have a clear memory of it, but I do remember the first bike that I got as an adult. Once I began biking, at age 20. It was an old Schwinn mountain bike, not from the era when Schwinn was making really good bikes. I got it off of Craigslist for, I think, $110.
Oh, you trusted a Craigslist ad?
Hey, it worked out okay. I rode it for a couple of years before I upgraded to something a bit better. But I bought it when I was home from college one summer. My best friend had gotten into cycling and told me, like, hey, you should get a bike so you can get around the city easily. At the time, didn't have a car. So it just made it a really easy way to get around town and quickly turned into just a means of exploring and adventuring as well. But yeah, that bike I definitely do remember pretty well.
Well, do you think you still kind of hold that same, like, maybe enthusiasm like you did when you got that first new bike? Is Philly really a friendly place to ride a bike?
Two questions there. Pretty different answers. I would say it's not every time that I get on a bike and start riding that I feel that same kind of like childlike freedom and just excitement that I used to when it was new, but you still get that on a pretty regular basis. And that's just one of the things I love about riding is that feeling that can come back at any time. Maybe it's just coasting down a really beautiful hill. Maybe it's getting up to the top of a really tough climb. But yeah, there are definitely, it's definitely not something that goes away permanently, even if it gets a little bit less common, that kind of initial enthusiasm. And Philly is somewhat friendly to ride a bike in. It's okay. It could be a lot better. There is a lot of room for improvement, and there has been a lot of improvement over the last 10 years, 15 years, I would say. We do have a decent amount of bike infrastructure in terms of bike lanes that connect places up and make it safe to travel by bike. But there are a lot of gaps in that network. There are a lot of areas where it's not as safe as it could be. And it's not as, it's more stressful than it needs to be. So we're always hoping that the city government is going to step up and just do more to make it safe to bike here, so that we'll see more people riding bikes.
Okay, so we're going to talk more about some of your ideas that you have, just to make biking safer and improve those gaps like you mentioned. But I want to talk about the fun stuff that you get to do, right? And I want to learn all about your recommendations for like great places to ride in the city. Okay, Julian, I'm going to take you back to a time when I was actually forced to get back on a bike too, because I had not ridden a bike since I was a little girl. And my first bike was from my grandma. I think it was like my 6th or 7th birthday, and I felt so cool on some wheels. But I had to, as an adult, be forced to ride one of these city Indigo bikes because SEPTA was on strike some years back. And so I had to get to work. And so I had to navigate the streets, and it was a little scary. So what would you recommend? Maybe not in like such a dramatic fashion that I had to kind of like use this particular transportation option, But like for folks that are maybe doing it more recreationally, there is no like stress to get around, but want to learn about some of like the basic bike 101 or how to ride a bike in the city. Any tips for folks getting into biking?
Yeah, so in terms of, especially if you're not as used to riding in the city, riding with traffic yet, that is something that for me it's so ingrained at this point. I've been doing it for so long. I started doing it, like I said, when I was 20 years old, and didn't really have much of a sense of my mortality. So I had no real fear about riding on streets that I maybe shouldn't have been riding on.
Right, right.
But for someone with a little more sense than that, than the average 20-year-old male, then one resource that you can look at actually is just Google Maps. Turn on the biking layer if you're looking at Google Maps on your phone or on your computer, and it'll show you where the bike lanes are. Now they're not always going to be the best bike lanes, so it doesn't really distinguish between a protected bike lane where there's physically something between you and the cars, which are not that common sadly in Philly. It doesn't distinguish between those and what we call like a bike gutter or a door zone bike lane where you're next to
Oh, like
traffic
if you
and
open
cars can
the car
easily.
door, you might get hit if you're
Exactly.
riding your bike. Okay.
Yeah, or cars might just swerve into that bike lane for a variety of reasons. So, it doesn't give you a perfect example, but it does show you kind of where the main bike corridors are, and we'll give you routes based on those. That said, if you're just getting into biking and if traffic is intimidating, there's a lot that you can do recreationally without having to be on the streets for too long. The Schuylkill River Trail, that's a great
Love it.
example. It runs up and down through the city.
Hmm.
It's going to connect you way, way out into the suburbs, really, if you want to go a long ways. It'll get you up to the Wissahickon. You can ride from Center City all the way to Forbidden Drive and up to the end of Philadelphia in the northwest on paths that are completely separated from cars almost entirely. So that's a great ride.
I've done that ride on an Indigo bike
Oh,
and
nice.
very much like what you said. It feels safe and I love the scenery. It's
Hmm.
very scenic to look at the Schuylkill River and all the trees, especially like in the fall too.
And it's a beautiful ride. Yeah, in the spring
Yeah.
when the cherry blossoms are out, and the fall when the leaves are changing, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Even in the summer, it's cooler when you're around trees and green space than just in the middle of the city.
Would you say
Um,
that that is a beginner friendly bike trail?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again,
Okay.
once you get onto that bike path, you're pretty much away from traffic the whole time.
And
There's
it's
not really going to
smooth
be
too. Like the
any.
surface is smooth.
Yeah, so the Schuylkill River Trail is all paved. At least there's a section in Manayunk that's gravel, but it's pretty smooth gravel. It's nothing technical or nothing that's really going to be difficult. Same for Forbidden Drive. Once you get there, it is gravel, and there are a few parts that are a bit rocky, but most of it you can ride on just about any bike, and it's not going to be too demanding or challenging. And as anybody who rides, whether casually or like up to professionally knows, there's always the option to get off and walk. There's no shame in that. That's the lowest gear that you got available to you, and it's always there. So even if you do hit a hill that's a little bit challenging, like just get off and walk. It's fine.
Julia, it's hot. What biking trails are actually good to like keep us cool on these hot days?
So the spot that I mentioned, going up Forbidden Drive, going up the Schuylkill River Trail to Forbidden Drive in the Wissahickon, that's a fantastic place to keep cool. Another place that I love is the Belmont Plateau trails. These are a
Ooh.
little bit more technical. So I mean, you don't need a mountain bike to ride some of the lighter trails up there. But just north of Belmont Plateau, not everybody knows there's a little gravel road that leads through the woods, and off of that, there's a whole network of mountain bike trails. And one of them, it's called the Trolley Trail, is a much easier trail to ride. So there's no big logs that you're going to have to hop over or big rocks that you have to jump off of. It's a pretty smooth and rolling trail that you can ride on, say, a gravel bike if you've got one. That's a nice place to cool down for sure. John Hines Wildlife Refuge is a great spot down by the airport, down through Southwest Philly, and there actually is surprisingly a pretty bike friendly route to get there from West Philly. You do have to kind of get out to the Cobbs Creek Trail, but if you take the Walnut Street bike lane all the way out from Center City, that's parking protected the whole way. Parking protected means that the parked cars are between you on your bike and the moving traffic. So it's a much safer and more secure feeling way of getting through the city. So Walnut and Chestnut Street in West Philly both have those protected bike lanes. And if you can get onto those, ride them all the way to the Cobbs Creek Trail and follow that trail down. There's a pretty busy section of Island Avenue that I wouldn't recommend riding on if you're new at this, but you can ride on the sidewalk next to that just for that kind of quarter mile. And at that point, you can follow the signs for the East Coast Greenway, or East Coast Greenway, like with a bike icon.
And so you're putting us in around like Southwest Philly.
Yeah, this would be
Hmm.
taking you through Southwest Philly. So you kind
Hmm.
of get through that one rougher section of Island Ave where it's high speed traffic. After that, you'll be on quieter neighborhood streets through Southwest Philly all the way down to the Wildlife Refuge. And that's a beautiful place to ride as well. There's forests, there's wetlands. In the springtime, you can go and hear frogs calling there and all kinds of bird
Oh, wow.
watching opportunities. And that's a really nice place too.
How long do some of these bike trails that you're mentioning, how long does it take to ride?
I'd say if you're going from Center City up to the very top of Forbidden Drive, that's probably around a 12-mile ride each way. So it's not terribly long. It's something that you can pretty easily go up there and back in an afternoon. And then if you want to take a picnic up there and eat by the creek, that's a great way to extend your trip. Going down to John Hines, if you're heading down from West Philly, where I live, it's probably about a 30-minute ride each way. Maybe 45 if you're coming from Center City.
Have you done any longer bike rides from starting in Philly to other areas in our region?
I've actually done quite a bit of that. In fact, I gave at the Philadelphia Bike Expo this past March. I gave a talk about what I called bike packing by transit from Philadelphia. So, just kind of giving my ideas, essentially from my own experience of how I've used SEPTA to get out of the city, get out of the suburban sprawl, and into kind of the countryside where the riding conditions are a lot nicer. There's less traffic. It's more scenic. So there's quite a bit that you can do there, just using SEPTA to kind of leapfrog your way out of that suburban sprawl. And even for day rides, it's a great way to do it if you're not driving. Obviously, if you're driving, you can kind of park anywhere you like. But even if you're just taking the train, any of the towns on the kind of far ends of the regional rail lines are usually going to be surrounded by countryside and a nice place to start riding once you get about 5 minutes away from that train station. So lots and lots of opportunities there. I would say, generally speaking, you're probably going to be going for most people to the west or to the north, so kind of into Bucks County or else into Chester County for the most, and I guess Montgomery County in there as well. Lots and lots of beautiful country roads. And again, if you take the Schuylkill River Trail, it's going to take you up through Valley Forge, up through Pottstown and beyond. And there's some really nice countryside off to either side of the Schuylkill once you get past about Norristown and it gets a little bit more rural.
I'm going to assume that you usually maybe like pack a bag when you go out on these longer bike rides in the region. So, Julian, what's in your bag? What type of bag are you packing for these trips?
Yeah, great question. On a day ride, I'm typically going to have just my bike repair tools, so something to fix a flat tire, a spare tube,
Oh, that's smart.
a multi-tool that has all the Allen wrenches on it, so I can adjust things on my bike if I need to.
Right.
There's going to be a tire lever for helping to get the tire off in case I need to change a tube or fix a flat. What else is in here? It's right next to me.
Oh, show me the bag.
This bike here is just the one that I've got. Handy.
What kind of bike is that?
This bike is a Salsa Fargo. So Salsa is the brand, Salsa is the make, I guess, if you will, and Fargo is the model. But yeah, I have this little what we call a gas tank bag on there. That thing is full of tools and let me just see what else is in there. Oh, a
It's
little.
very compact.
It's very compact. Yeah, a little cable lock, just so I can kind of. I wouldn't rely on this in the city for a long term, locking up my bike. But
Okay.
if you're just running into a supermarket or running into a store out in a small town, like it's totally fine. Just keep somebody from casually walking away with your bike. You're gonna have your chamois cream, kind of like keeps you from getting chafed around the butt area.
Around your butt.
Got your multi tool, bunch of Allen wrenches on here,
Mhm.
and yeah, and then some snacks. So I'll usually have, maybe some granola bars if it's a longer ride. Maybe again some of these kind of little gels or blocks that are full of electrolytes, good for hydration and nutrition. And a pump. Gotta have a pump, otherwise you can't reinflate your tire once you patch it. And yeah, if it's a longer ride, maybe I'll bring a bigger bag as well, just so I can fit a sandwich in there. Maybe stop by Wawa, get a hoagie on the way, and water bottles, sunscreen.
Talk to me about the headgear, though.
Oh, gotta wear your helmet. There are probably some places where I would say, okay, it's fine if you don't wear a helmet. Like once you get into a place like John Hines Wildlife Refuge, it's flat. There's no cars. You're not going to be, encountering anything moving at high speed. It's probably not the end of the world if you don't wear a helmet there. But I don't ride around the streets of Philadelphia for sure, or the roads of America without wearing a helmet. It's just yeah, the risk of getting hit by a car and getting a head injury is huge, or rather the stakes are huge. So even if it's unlikely, it's not a chance you want to take.
We've got more after this short break. As you begin to make your itinerary for summer, add Brooklyn Bowl to the list. Brooklyn Bowl is a perfect blend of live music, bowling, beer, and food. It's located in Fishtown next to the Fillmore. 24 bowling lanes, 2 bars, and a restaurant featuring food from the Blue Ribbon Restaurant Group. It's open Thursday through Saturday evenings with live shows and parties every week. Half price bowling Thursdays, family bowl Saturdays, plus food and drink specials in the restaurant during Phillies games. Go to brooklynbowl.com/Philadelphia to purchase tickets to shows, make a restaurant reservation, or inquire about hosting your next private event on the Brooklyn Bowl lanes. Okay, Julian, let's go back on the trails. So there's a term, bike packer. Tell me what this means to you.
So yeah, bike packing is kind of the most popular term that's in use now for really any type of any bike trip that is 2 days or more where you're sleeping somewhere besides your home. So that can look like it can be one night or one day riding out to a campground near the city, maybe French Creek State Park, maybe Green Lane Park up in Montgomery County. Camp there, next day ride back home. That's a bike packing trip. It can also be quit your job and ride around the world for 5 years and make a living off of being a
That'd be
YouTuber
cool.
or else I don't know, inherit some money from a rich uncle.
Right.
Those are both examples of bike packing, and it can be anything in between there.
So it varies.
Any multi-day bike trip, no matter what it looks like, that's some form of bike packing, and that's all it means. So the term comes obviously from backpacking, but on a bike. So think like hiking the Appalachian Trail, but you're just doing it on a bike instead of on your 2 feet, and that's bike packing.
You mentioned French Creek State Park. Where's that?
Oh, French Creek State Park. Yeah, this is a beautiful state park that's out in, I guess, Chester County somewhere. But it's very close to the Schuylkill River Trail. So it's probably about a 55-mile ride from Philadelphia if you ride the whole way out there. And most of the way that you're getting there is on the Schuylkill Trail. So again, car free, away from traffic. Once you get close to French Creek State Park, there's going to be one last big push up a hill, some pretty significant climbs. So again, nothing that you can't do. Just if you need to, get off and walk, or just take it slow. There's a big campground that is usually not full, so easy to find a place to camp there. I'd say one of the 2 most popular bike camping destinations from Philadelphia is French Creek State Park. The other one is Green Lane County Park. There's 2 bike trails that are going to connect you there, both car-free bike trails. So to Green Lane, it's about 40 or so miles from Center City. You're going to take the Schuylkill River Trail out just past Valley Forge and then connect to the Perkiomen Trail, which is another bike path, much like the Schuylkill Trail, that will get you all the way up to Green Lane. And there's a beautiful campground up there too. So again, a very popular destination for bike camping, bike touring from bike packing from Philadelphia. Sorry, bike touring is another like somewhat older term for bike packing. And actually, the weekend after this episode is going live, the 20th and 21st of June, there's going to be the annual summer solstice camp out where a big group of people is riding out to Green Lane County Park and camping out there overnight, then riding back home on Sunday. And that's being co-hosted by Keystone Bicycle Company and RAR Philadelphia, Radical Adventure Riders.
You told me about the trails in the city. You told me about some trails in some of our neighboring counties. Now, Julian, tell me about this Jersey Devil Hunt. What is this trail all about?
So yeah, the Jersey Devil Hunt is a bikepacking route that I created. I essentially mapped it out. Like I found a series of roads, trails, paths that you can link up to ride through the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. But yeah, in the bikepacking world, that is what you would call a bikepacking route. Just a set of directions that you can follow. It usually comes with a map that shows, oh, here's where you can camp, here's where you can buy food, here's where you can fill up your water, and all that sort of thing. And yeah, it's the first bikepacking route that's been published, to my knowledge, through the Pine Barrens of New Jersey. Now, if you don't know what the Pine Barrens are, you're in for a treat. It's an amazing place. It's within an hour's drive of Philadelphia. There's a wilderness the size of Yosemite National Park. It's a huge green space, 5 state forests across South Jersey, and it's just full of wilderness, full of beautiful, pristine creeks and streams and wetlands and lakes, full of giant forests and swamps. It's a gorgeous place, full of potential for exploration. And it's so close to Philadelphia that I just thought there ought to be a bikepacking route out there to show people like how to make it accessible.
How long is this route that you mapped out?
It's 170 miles long. It goes from Trenton to Atlantic City. And the reason why I picked these two cities, both of which are not really places that you would associate with the Pine Barrens, is because both of them have train connections to Philadelphia. So the whole thing is very easy to do by train from Philly without having to drive a car out there. All you got to do is hop on a train from 30th Street, get to Trenton, start riding, and 3 days later you get to Atlantic City. Take the Atlantic City line back home to 30th Street, right where you started. So very logistically easy.
But is it meant for beginners or folks who are advanced?
I would say you don't necessarily need to be advanced, but to the extent that any bikepacking trip is beginner friendly, this one is fairly beginner friendly. There's no big hills. That's one thing that I think attracts a lot of people. It's a very flat part of the world. But there are some long distances between resupplies, for example. So especially on the first day, there might be up to a 40-mile stretch between water supplies that are reliable. So you're going to want to, pack a lot of water and make sure you've got enough food to get through that section. You want to kind of be familiar with how to fix your bike in case something goes wrong. Now, it is South Jersey, so you're never that far from civilization. So I would say if you're a total beginner, it might be something that you want to do maybe an overnight trip first to one of those places I mentioned, like French Creek or Green Lane. But if you have a little bit of experience bikepacking already, or if you have a lot of experience riding a bike and you kind of know what camping gear you need and how to pack for that, I would say that it could definitely be a good first trip if you've got some of that foundational knowledge.
Julian, there is maybe like this urban legend over in Jersey, over across the river, of this Jersey Devil. And you have this bike packing trail that you've called the Jersey Devil Hunt.
Yeah, it's kind of the local cryptid. So, in some places you have Bigfoot, other places you've got your Mothman or your Chupacabra. South Jersey has the Jersey Devil. It's got the hooves of a goat, but the legs of a bird. Different iterations of what it looks like, but
it sounds like an amazing kind of creature.
yeah, it's kind of a hodgepodge, as many mythical monsters are. It's kind of a hodgepodge of different actual animals, but it flies out the window and it starts terrorizing the sheep and the cows of the area. It's eating livestock, terrorizing the locals, and that's been the legend ever since.
Have you seen the Jersey Devil on this trail?
Still looking. Okay. I'm confident that we're going to find him. I've got my binoculars with me, but haven't seen him yet.
Julian, when I'm listening to you explain some of the trails that are outside of the city, it seems like you have just embraced these natural elements of these routes and you've kind of adapted your cycling to whatever the terrain is. But when we talk about routes in the city, what would you like to see in the upcoming iterations of bike trails in the city?
Great question. Yeah, so I would say I probably have a pretty high tolerance for riding in more stressful traffic conditions than a lot of people do, partly because I've been doing it for so long. Again, I kind of started when I was young and thought I was invincible, so I just built up a tolerance for that stuff. But that's not the case for a lot of people. A lot of people are understandably very stressed out by the idea of riding in Philadelphia traffic. We've all seen how people drive in this city. They're staring at their phones, they're blowing through red lights, and they're swerving in and out of lanes without paying attention. So it can be pretty frightening. And that's the reason why, I feel like I have adapted pretty well to riding in those sorts of conditions. But a lot of people just aren't going to. They're gonna feel like they're putting their lives at risk, and they just aren't gonna want to deal with that sort of condition. So
then my question goes back to, is Philly a really bike friendly city?
Yeah, that's why I said it's kind of a halfway bike friendly city. We do have some of that infrastructure that makes it safe for, I would say, people who have a lower and maybe more reasonable risk tolerance than I do. And that's why we need more bike lanes. That's why we need especially more protected bike lanes. One thing that is I think often missed is that a bike lane is paint on the street. That's great. It kind of tells people, okay, this is where bikes are supposed to be. This is not where cars are supposed to be. But again, this is Philly. That paint is a suggestion at best. Any bike lane that's not physically separated from cars is going to be full of cars at sometimes, maybe at all times. There are a lot of the busiest bike lanes in the city are blocked up by cars essentially all the time. I can name lots of examples off the top of my head, like 38th and Spruce is a really bad one for that. And so because of that, just having paint on the ground doesn't make it safe or feel safe for the average cyclist to ride through. So That's why we need protected bike lanes. Things like in West Philly, we've got parking protected bike lanes where the parked cars, instead of being right by the curb, are now between the bike lane and traffic. It's kind of a win-win for everybody. There's still parking there for those who need it, and the cyclists and the cars don't have to compete for space as much, and there's not going to be cars parked in that bike lane all the time. So that's a great example of how to do it. Another great example would be what we're looking to get done in Center City on Spruce and Pine Streets, where there already are bike lanes that are, again, painted on the ground. And, there are no stopping signs, so cars legally aren't supposed to be stopping there. And theoretically, they can get a ticket if they do stop in the Spruce or Pine Street bike lanes. But lots of cars still stop there. It's usually people, loading or delivering things. But essentially, we're hoping that once we get real concrete protection, like physical concrete curbs that are separating that bike lane from the traffic lanes, that those bike lanes are also going to be protected, where people can ride through them and be confident that they won't have to swerve back out into car traffic because some car is blocking the bike lane. So that's really the gold standard for making it safe to bike in the city. I think that if we have a continuous connected network of those type of bike lanes, those safe protected bike lanes all across the city, and not like a little bit here, a little bit there, but then a big gap in between where you have to ride with traffic. I think once we have that, we're going to see a lot more people riding bikes, because now they finally feel like it's safe for them to do, safe for their families to do, safe for their kids to do. And that's the big difference. That's why we're only halfway bike friendly.
Julian, this is such a contentious issue in our city, wouldn't you say?
Yep, it sure is. There's a lot of people that I think are accustomed to being able to use the bike lane in front of their house, for example, as free parking or as a free loading zone.
And you understand that, though, right? I mean, like,
well, sure, convenience is hard to give up.
You got to get in the house.
Well, sure, yeah, convenience is hard to give up, but it's like a lot of people I think have the expectation of being able to park in these spots that are not legal spots to park in, and it's just kind of overlooked. It's not really enforced. But yeah, I think if everybody understands that, hey, like we can have it all in some sense. We can still have the legal parking spots, which we already have. We can have these protected bike lanes that make it safe for bikers, and we can have loading zones where people can, if they need to drop something off, if they need to pick somebody up, they can pull into those loading zones if they're there instead of pulling into a bike lane. It's really going to be a win-win for everybody.
I'm curious because I am not a cyclist. I rely heavily on my car and or SEPTA to commute or like ride shares. Is there an appetite for it to be a sort of utopia for all of us to use these roadways in a cooperative way?
Yeah, I think there is. I think that a lot of people, even if they aren't interested in biking, if they're not bikers themselves, I think a lot of people are going to understand, like, we do need to make traffic safer in this city. Like I said, the drivers here are pretty lawless. They just kind of blow through red lights, they speed, they look at their phones while they're driving. I think everybody has had some experience where you've almost been run over by a driver as you're trying to, walk when you have the green light and they just aren't looking. So I've
had those experiences walking, and
yes.
I got yelled at by a cyclist, like, get out of the way. But then there are times when you're on a shared space like the Schuylkill River Trail, and someone says on your left, and I love when that happens, right? Because I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. I'll move over a little bit so you can get by.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, calling out to give a warning to let people know you're coming past is always a good practice. Honestly, I think the Schuylkill Trail is busy enough now that it would really benefit from having a bike path next to a pedestrian path, so that way everybody kind of knows, like, hey, this is the space where I should be in. That way the bikers can go at the speed they need to go, the pedestrians can go where they need to go without having to share that with bikers. I think everybody would be happier that way. Obviously finding the space to build that is a whole nother challenge, but yeah, to go back to traffic, yeah, I think we've all had these experiences where we're in one mode of transportation, we get into a conflict with somebody who's in a different mode, and if we can all just like zoom out a little bit and remember that, like, hey, we all need to be safe, we all need to all need to get where we're going safely, and also, yeah, I think really the danger tends to come from traffic, from cars that are moving more quickly than they should be. And one of the ways that you can do that is to build streets better. I think you mentioned road diets. One of the ways that you can do that is to build streets better so that cars are not sort of encouraged to move faster than they should be moving. There are treatments that you can do to roads to calm traffic, to kind of encourage drivers naturally to drive slower. Sometimes it's actually speed bumps, so it's really like kind of forcing them to slow down and look where they're going a little bit more. There's a lot of these improvements that you can do to streets to make them safer. And bike lanes can actually be a part of that. Again, if you kind of have too much, sometimes you realize that a street is too wide. Chestnut Street and Walnut Street in West Philly, great examples. These streets didn't get bike lanes because they specifically needed a bike lane there, but because the streets were too wide. They were 3 lanes wide, and people were driving down them at highway speeds, right past houses, right past playgrounds and schools and residential neighborhoods. And that's where the pressure came from, that like we need these streets to be safe. Like people's kids need to cross the street to get to school.
Absolutely.
And so putting the bike lane in there, taking one of those traffic lanes and narrowing the street means that now there's not as much incentive for cars to speed ahead. And so just reducing the width of the road helped a lot. And then since you have that extra width, let's put a bike lane in there. That's one of the ways that all these things can kind of come together and be a safety improvement that really just improves it for everybody.
Awesome. Julian, thank you so much for just chatting with me and sharing all of your biking knowledge today on CityCast Philly.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a great time.
Follow Julian's adventures on Instagram at Jersey Devil Hunt Bikepacking. And he's also got a free online guide with all the information that you could ever need to know about riding the Jersey Devil Hunt. Head over to jerseydevilhunt.com. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. Our executive producer is Matt Katz. Our senior producer is Abby Fritz. Our producer, Alyssa Castles. Our newsletter editor, Siani Cologne. And our host is me, Trinae Nuri. Music is by Philly's own Interminable, with additional music from All the Kimonos. If you enjoyed this episode, and really this week of episodes, make sure you share this in the group chat. Let your friends know. Also, rate the show. Leave us a review and subscribe to our morning newsletter. We're off tomorrow because we'll be observing Juneteenth. So we'll talk to you on Monday morning about more news from around the city. Have a great weekend and be safe, y'all. Bye.